Record first.
Okay.
We're recording.
All right, sounds good. I just want to welcome everybody to the POC meeting on November 15th, 2021. I just want to say hi and thank you to the POC members here today and to everybody who's willing to give a presentation. We look forward to hearing from you. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer as she's going to walk us through this meeting today.
Thank you, Andrew. So I welcome everybody as well, and I appreciate everybody taking time out of their day. So we are recording this presentation. We have a couple, I think two specific Project Oversight Committee members that Monday makes it difficult, so they'll be here for part of it, but we'd like to record it. So on today's agenda, we'll have, I'll do a quick application summary overview, and then we'll have the presentations. And I'll go over the next step and a little bit about a survey we're going to put out, and then some reminders mainly for the POC. All the guests here today are welcome to stay till the end of the meeting. So with that, we opened the call for projects August 9th, as you know, and then closed it October 29th. So the Project Oversight Committee will review applications later this month and into December. So staff is taking a little bit longer to review the applications this year. Last year, we were quite fast. We had the bonus allocation funds, and those have a pretty hard deadlines on it. So so we were rushing last year. This year is a little bit different. So then the Project Oversight Committee will eventually get to a short list. That short list will end up with the TCC. The TCC will recommend to the board, and that approval should be done in February 2022. So I think I've publicly said a few times, but if you haven't been on the email thread or heard me, we received 31 applications, 10 in highway and intersection, 12 in bike ped, 1 in transit, which is sort of a air quote there, it's for air quality, 4 in planning, and then 4 shortfalls. And everybody, all the applicants did turn their applications in on time, and they all did do the mandatory meeting. So our funding targets are 80% highway intersection, 20% bike and ped, and about 1% planning, which of course is 101, but we have about $50 million this year. So roughly, I think it's about 39 something, almost 40 million for highway, 10 million for the bike and ped, and then $500,000 for planning projects. The summary of the applications that came in. So for new highway intersection projects, we have about 41 million. The bike ped at 27 million. The transit project was 3.8. The planning is about 336. Shortfall is about 3.8. So right now we're about 76 million. The applications are still under review. So I do expect some of these numbers to change a little bit. Again, the funding availability is 50 million. So we're going to jump into the presentations, and so let me explain to the POC what I've already explained to the applicants, just to make sure we're all on the same page. So each project has can have a presentation up to 5 minutes. So once we load up, like City of Charlotte, they will do all of theirs together. So we've tried to condense, switching presenters too many times. We have 10 towns presenting today, or 16 presentations, which will take about 80 minutes. So hang in there, but the slides are really good, and I think you'll be totally engaged. So hopefully that will go just fine. There's no points given for today's presentations. So just keep that in the back of your mind. And I've stressed that this is a really optional thing. We are not doing planning or shortfall presentations today because that was just going to be too many. And also think of this more as just this is just an information. So we're not going to do a verbal Q&A, but feel free to, if you want to put any questions in the chat box, or you can email them to me and I'll reach out to the applicant either later today or tomorrow and get some answers for you. I suspect the information is going to be coming so fast that you probably won't have time to write too many questions, but think about these projects as well as when we're reviewing the scores in a couple of weeks. I really am curious to know if you've seen a presentation and then maybe it hasn't scored like you thought it was, and if we ever need to go back and revisit our scoring guidelines. I mean, look at this not only in today's view of the applications, but in the big picture. And this is just a pilot. We want to see how this presentation goes this year. And in the survey that I'll be sending out to the applicants, I really want some honest feedback on, did we like this or was it just too much? So the presentations are going to go in this order. We had a last minute change with Matthews, otherwise it's in alphabetical order. Before I start, that was pretty fast. Does anybody have any questions? So I will run the slides, and so the presenters, you simply just need to go off mute and go ahead and tell me when to advance. There's a couple, I think 2 presentations where there's some animation in there, and if it's okay, I will try to be in sync with your presentation. But if you prefer for me to wait, just go ahead before you start your presentation and tell me, that you want me to advance when you give me the cue. So any questions there?
Actually, I have a question.
Okay, good.
Each applicant has 5 minutes. Is this
Right.
5 minutes, like 5 minutes for the town of Matthews, if they have more than one, or for each project?
Each project. And I've asked Theo to write in the chat box when we get down to a minute. So Theo, I think if it doesn't sound like things are wrapping up, go ahead and put, 60 seconds left or something like that. But if it sounds like they're, got plenty of time, then I think you're okay.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Okay, anybody else? All right. Well, with that, we have Town of Matthews first. So I have these slides in between each town, so I'm not going to spring you on your. So Susan, I think you're here.
Yes, I am. Thank you. Thanks for letting me go first. I really appreciate the accommodation. As shown here, hi everyone. First of all, hello everyone. It's good to see so many familiar names. It's been a while. I see you're all very camera shy. But that's cool. That's cool. I won't take it personally. Here's our first application. We have 2. The first one is what we're calling the Moore Margolin Sidewalk. And let me pull up my notes. So this is actually a sidewalk gap project. The purpose is to fill the gaps in the existing sidewalk system there on the north side of Moore Road and Margolin Road. The first part on like kind of the western half is Moore Road. It's town maintained. The eastern half is Margolin. It changes names partway through just to keep it interesting here in the town of Matthews. The project limits are as depicted on this slide. They're from Matthews Midhill Road along on the north side of 74 along Moore Road to the existing sidewalk at Margolin Drive, which is where that arrowhead is. These gaps that are missing in the sidewalk system preclude residents from being able to access nearby retail, a nearby school, and a greenway. Interestingly, this little corner of Matthews is developing rapidly. You can see on this slide that there are some active construction sites. Parts of the missing sidewalk will be filled by these developments. But additionally, 350 new apartments on Matthews Midhill Road at the start of this project and 100 retro style apartments on Moore Road would have access to a greenway that they currently don't have because of a missing piece of sidewalk. So to orient everyone, you see US 74, they're running what we call east-west, but northwest, southeast. And that's where we have a bunch of commercial parcels you see. There's actually 2 hotels there between the orange line and US 74. So people visiting would be able to access the Greenway and other retail. The apartments and the high school are along, you can see that big high school campus there. That's Butler High School on Matthews Min Hill Road. And then on the northern part of that orange line is that new apartment complex that Bainbridge built. And then as you move eastward along that orange line, you pass Royal Park, which is age-restricted housing there under construction with new apartments and new townhomes. And then as you move eastward again, you see now we're entering the single-family residences. Next slide. This slide demonstrates that the existing gaps in the sidewalk network. Black is where there's existing sidewalk. Blue is sidewalk that's currently being installed by development, and green are the gaps in the system. So the project limits, as mentioned before, are from the existing sidewalk near Matthews Mint Hill Road on the page north of this to the sidewalk that exists on Margland. The gaps from Margland Drive to Mount Harmony Church Road might have the opportunity to be completed with redevelopment. That was that big open area that you saw on the previous slide. By connecting these gaps, residents in the single family neighborhoods would now have uninterrupted pedestrian access to the Greenway, commercial, Butler High School, and church. In addition, people staying at 2 hotels in the senior housing and apartments would have more continuity in the pedestrian system. We found that in Matthews, more residents in active adult communities and apartments prefer to have the option to travel by foot or by bike, and this project would provide modal choice to residents. That's my 5-minute presentation in 1 minute and 45 seconds. I don't see that there's any questions in the chat box, but are there any questions that I can answer at this time? Jennifer, did I cover everything that you're expecting to hear in the presentation?
That was perfect. That was great. Thank you.
So I think we could probably move on to the next. Oh, here we go. David McDonald, do you have any pedestrian counts or evidence of pedestrian use? We do not have any pedestrian counts out here. Thank you for the question. Largely because that big blue line that you see where it says Moore Road was a guardrail. And they are widening out that berm and installing sidewalk and handrail and softening that slope. So right now, people walking it would have to be in the street. Well, that was prior to construction. So we didn't conduct any counts out there. But we know if you build it, they will come, right, David? So by completing these gaps, we definitely anticipate these residents would utilize that.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Would you like to go on to the next one?
Would love to. Next project is Greylock Ridge Road. Oops, let me get on my notes. Greylock Ridge Road is an existing street in Matthews, and we actually have currently funded through bonus allocation dollars, extending Greylock Ridge across East John Street over to Charles Street. That's this grayed out section on this slide. As the state and the town are progressing through the planning stages of this project, we discussed how much more benefit would be realized by completing the town's initial vision of carrying this street through to Tanktown. This section was left out of the original BA grant request because town staff didn't think that railroad coordination we could do it within the June 2024 BA requirement. Basically, all of the money has to be allocated or right by June of 2024. And we all know railroad coordination can be a time-consuming project. And with the small staff that we have, we want to be realistic about the project we could deliver. However, now the state is managing this project, and so leveraging the state's railroad staff to work with CSX would make the deadline much, much more achievable. So extending the project limits from where they currently are at Charles Street across the railroad tracks to Tanktown Road would solve the particular problem of this skewed at-grade intersection that is heavily traveled by pedestrians. If you look over there on the right-hand side, the yellow and the red are the proposed like kind of concept plan. But in the light gray, you can see Charles Street parallels the railroad. And then there's this little diagonal crossing, and Tanktown continues on paralleling. Well, there's a sidewalk that is along both Charles Street and Tanktown. And so pedestrians are crossing through this skewed crossing. So you have the railroad, Charles, Tanktown, and pedestrians all kind of, yep, right where that arrow was, merging in that space. Next slide shows you a little bit better how that is. Here's the aerial of the existing conditions. To orient you, the heritage trail you see in this slide is the Greylock Ridge Road right-of-way that the town purchased. By extending the project to Tanktown Road, pedestrians, bicycle, and vehicular connectivity across the railroad tracks would provide residents the opportunity to access the Greenway, excuse me, Mecklenburg County Sportsplex, single-family homes, future apartments on that wooded parcel on the bottom part of your screen, as well as future apartments off of Sports Parkway, off to the east side of your screen, and churches that are near the project area, as well as retail near the project area. So the current Greylock Ridge Road BA project, it can be successful on its own. However, with this extension to Tanktown Road, a safer and more efficient crossing of the railroad track can be realized, especially for the vulnerable nodes, making for a more complete project. And so I'm wondering if there's any questions you have at this time. Bill Thunberg has a question. Get construction authorization by 2024. Is it better to revise the scope of the existing project or as a separate project as far as management or delays? So the state is the project manager on this project, and they believe that with this extension, they can get construction authorization by 2024. The railroad staff is already engaged. Is it better to revise the scope of the existing project? Could you elaborate on that, Bill?
Yeah, the BA project that is existing, is it better to add this to it or propose it as a separate project? Because I didn't want this project to delay the start of the other project or whatever. So
I leave that at discretion of the POC, right? I mean, it would be great to revise the scope of the existing project, but I think as far as applying for funds, kind of keeping it as a separate project helps put us in, back in the scope. Jennifer, would you like to clarify that?
So we can have those discussions. I think this going back and forth would take a long time. So Bill, on your question, I think I would like to just copy it down and then address it with the POC, because we did talk about that in the pre-submittal meeting. So I guess what I'm seeing is happening is in Susan, and I'm cutting it into your time a little bit, that the presentation went quite fast. And so it left time to do a little bit of Q&A. And I think as long as we stay within that 5 minutes, I think I'm okay with that. So if your presentation's going long or you just want to move into the next one, that's okay. So
I was done. Actually, that's why I commented on the question. So thank you. I do want to point out, those of you who are following the chat box, that Stuart mentioned he's seen people walking on that Margolin project site.
Great. Thank you, Susan.
All right. Thank you again, everyone. Good to see you.
All right, Charlotte.
Hey, everybody. Hope you're having a great afternoon. This is Keith Bryant with the Charlotte Department of Transportation. We have 4 exciting projects that we want to present to you. All 4 of them are not new projects per se, but they're new projects in terms of the CRTPO funding process. So they're all new projects. There's 1 ped bike category and 3 in the roadway category. So without further ado, I'm going to kick it over to Paul Benton to talk about the I-277 Rail Trail Bridge project. Paul, take it away.
All right, thanks, Keith. So the I-277 Rail Trail Bridge project is a 16-foot wide bridge project that will connect the current terminus of the rail trail today at East Moorhead Street to the Stonewall station over across 277 on the Cat's Blue line. So this is again a 16-foot wide pedestrian and bike bridge that links South End and Uptown. It crosses the barrier of I-277 and completes a really critical connection in Charlotte's rail trail. The project is providing a critical missing link in the active transportation network between South End and Uptown. There's a number of projects ongoing and in development in this vicinity that will help eventually connect over 40 total miles of bikeways into and across Uptown in the vicinity of this project. Some of those projects include the 5th and 6th Street cycle track, which is nearing completion. That's part of the Uptown Cycle Link, which you may see if you're familiar with the area, under construction now. There's also the Little Sugar Creek Greenway and Irwin Creek Greenways being connected through the Uptown Cycle Link project. And again, over or about 40 miles total of bikeways that will be served as part of critical connectivity that it's provided through this project. So if you've ever been on the rail trail today, you know about the high volumes of pedestrians and bicyclists we see on a daily basis, close to 3,000 daily trips. The gap between South End and Uptown has been a long-standing one that, the original intent of the Blue Line project included the completion of that gap for trips between those two major destinations and originations for trips. This would help complete that original vision and deliver, again, a real spine of our active transportation network between two of our densest and most vibrant neighborhoods near Uptown. You can jump to the next slide, Jennifer. This is a map that shows the proposed alignment in yellow here towards the center of the screen. Down on the south side of the screen towards the bottom, you can see East Moorhead Street, and the existing rail trail terminates today in sort of a dead end near an apartment complex. Users today have to travel from there up a pretty tight winding ramp along the College Street off ramp from I-277 and cross some really substandard facilities across College Street to get to a backup curb sidewalk and traverse into Uptown from there. On the other end of that alignment over 277, you can see the Lynx Blue Line Stonewall Station pointed out there. Today, that's a really well-designed plaza that's in close proximity to grocery stores, the Charlotte Convention Center, a lot of other great commercial and recreational destinations. But it hasn't been truly activated by a project yet. So this project brings us closer to that activation and brings all kinds of vitality to that area. If you could jump to the last slide, please. These are some renderings and visualizations of the project. You can see here the arches, which are some really important aesthetic and structural components that help to tie this project together and also create the project itself into a place and a destination of its own. We think this is critical access for that transit station, activates Stonewall Plaza, provides bike parking in the area, and connects a lot of residents and visitors to Uptown and South End via active transportation modes. So with that, I'll hand it off to Tom Sorrentino to talk about our next project.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tom Sorrentino. I'm also with the Charlotte Department of Transportation. I'll go over the Robinson Church Road project and give an overview of that. So the Robinson Church Road project consists primarily of safety and congestion improvements at two key intersections along Robinson Church Road. The first is at Robinson Church Road and W.T. Harris. The other intersection is at Robinson Church Road and Plot Highland. Both of these intersections are currently experiencing some level of congestion, delays, and excessive queuing during the peak periods. And this is expected to just continue to worsen as development occurs along the corridor. There is a fair amount of development activity occurring in subdivision, single family, multifamily, and there's a lot of vacant land that is rapidly filling in. At the W.T. Harris intersection, we are looking to extend the left and right turn storage lane lengths to accommodate, there's very heavy left turns, right turns, and also a U-turn, southbound U-turning movement. The southbound left/U-turn storage is being increased to 435 feet, and the westbound left and right turn lanes are being increased to 400 feet to accommodate those movements. We're also at W.T. Harris also providing an additional pedestrian crosswalk across the south leg of the intersection that doesn't exist now. And we're making some median modifications along W.T. Harris to accommodate these increased storage lengths. The second intersection is at Plot and Highland. This is currently a four-legged intersection. It's currently operating at a level of service E and F during the peak periods. There's a very heavy westbound left turn movement, as well as in the AM peak, and in the afternoon, there's a very heavy northbound right turn movement. It's currently operating at a level of service E and F, and this is only expected to continue to worsen as that development occurs, that I mentioned. There's also been a identifiable pattern of left turn and angle crashes at the intersection. So as part of the study, we analyzed both a traffic signal at the intersection, as well as a roundabout. And we are proposing to build a 2-lane roundabout at the intersection. The roundabout showed to be a better alternative compared to the signal. The roundabout shows to very easily accommodate the heavy turning movements, and as well as operate at a better level of service. The projections or the traffic analysis indicates that with the roundabout, the future intersection would operate at a level of service A and B versus the current E and F, and which is expected to continue to be an F if no improvements were to be made. Part of the intersection design, there's development on 3 of the 4 corners currently. The southeast corner is currently undeveloped, and the roundabout kind of takes advantage of that by shifting the center towards that southeast corner to take advantage of the vacant land and stay away from the developed parcels. So we're hoping that at this moment, there's no planned activity for that southeast corner. So this project will take advantage of that, and we're hoping that we can advance this project while that is still the case. Let's see, yeah, so roundabouts, we have built quite a few roundabouts in the city of Charlotte and throughout Mecklenburg County. I'm sure you're aware. Roundabouts in general have proven to be a pretty safe and efficient alternative intersection design, and mainly because they eliminate many conflicting vehicle turning movements. Part of the project too, we are also, if you look at the map at the bottom, so the W.T. Harris intersection is on the left side of the screen. The Plot Highland intersection is on the right. The project also includes constructing full street improvements between the 2 intersections with a 3-lane curb and gutter section that will provide a center space for intermittent left turn lanes or pedestrian refuge. As well, we are adding multi-use paths, street trees, and street lighting. These improvements will connect the 2 intersections and greatly enhance the safety and operation of this section of Robinson Church Road. And let's see, Jennifer, I forget, was there one more slide there, or was that? Yeah, okay, so this is just renderings of the 2 intersections. So you can see the roundabout is on the left and the W.T. Harris intersection on the right side. And that concludes the presentation. Any questions about that? Or if not, the W.T. Harris project is up next.
So Jennifer, I'm the next one on the docket, and so just to help keep us on schedule, I'm going to jump into the W.T. Harris street lighting project. Again, my name is Anthony Mendez, and so the limits of this project overall are from Mount Holly Huntersville to I-85 to the I-85 North ramp. And the scope of this project is to ultimately install approximately 560 lights along the corridor of a roughly 8-mile section of W.T. Harris. And so the project is ultimately going to be solving a significant safety concern in the corridor. Currently, 5 out of the 7 subsegments of the limits of W.T. Harris rank in the city's top 40 of the identified lighting projects. And I'll go into a little bit more detail about how we got that information. And then, but some raw data is that over the last 5 years, we've seen approximately 243 crashes in the corridor that have resulted in either fatalities or injuries. And then to kind of quantify the benefits that these improvements would have is that when looking at NCDOT's crash modification factors for street lighting countermeasures and comparing them to the existing crashes, we would expect to see a reduction in crashes of upwards of 48%. And then when you do a benefit cost analysis, looking at crashes for the course of 10 years, we'd see approximately a 17.7 ratio. And that's ultimately comparing the cost of the existing crashes and comparing them to the reduced cost of the new anticipated crashes. And just for kind of like gauging that ratio, anything over 12 is considered a really strong project. And so Jennifer, if you could advance to the next slide, please. This slide shows an overall map of the corridor, Mount Holly Huntersville being up to the top left, and then the I-85 North ramp to the bottom right. And then on the far right, you can see a picture of the light that we would ultimately be looking to install. And it's important to point out that over this 8-mile corridor, we'd be passing through activity centers, single family homes, industrial usage, as well as schools and parks. So a lot of different users access this corridor on a daily basis. Jennifer, if you could go to the next slide. Now I'll raise my hand. I'm one of the troublemakers that had animation. So Jennifer, I'll work with me and we'll make our way through it. But since I think it's really important to kind of point out as why we're talking about this as an important project, the fact that since the 1980s, the city of Charlotte has more than doubled in size. And you can see from this map that the darker green areas are newer portions of the city. So we've seen radial growth over the last 40 years. And this has ultimately led us to a point where we have 630 miles of thoroughfares within the Charlotte city limits. Jennifer, if you could go to the next animation, you can see when correlating the new growth and looking at a map showing where our unlit thoroughfares are in the city, you can see that the two align very, very well. The city of Charlotte has roughly 145 miles of unlit thoroughfare in the city limits, and approximately 90% of these are state maintained facilities. And that's important to point out because for the state, their lighting policy, they only light interstates. And so leaving thoroughfares to be, leaving the local municipalities to add lighting to the thoroughfares within their network. And so what we've done over the last year, Jennifer, if you could advance to the next animation, what we've done is we've prioritized these 145 miles. We split them up into ultimately 200 segments. And so we've ranked them based on their high injury network score, which ultimately is how many crashes that they have and the severity of them, as well as their existing sidewalk, whether there's the types of adjacent land use, which I mentioned, and then the traffic volumes. And as I kind of stated in the beginning, out of the 200 overall segments in the city, 5 of the 7 segments of W.T. Harris ranked in our top 40 overall. And even so, Jennifer, if you could go to the final animation indicating where WT Harris is in the overall map of the city, even within the last few weeks, as we've been kind of showing this to council, we've seen that if we break it down to our top 10 prioritized unfunded lighting projects within the city, WT Harris ranks second and fourth. And so we see for these reasons it's a competitive project, and one that we think would be a great benefit to our community and to the citizens, and why we feel like it would be a good use of public dollars. So that's all I have for WT Harris. And so I'm going to pass it on for the last presentation from Charlotte to Aaron Pratt.
Thank you, Anthony.
Okay, thanks, Jennifer. So good afternoon. My name is Aaron Pratt, and I'm with the Charlotte Department of Transportation. I'm here today to provide an overview for the Eastway Drive Shamrock Drive intersection project that was submitted as a new roadway application. The Eastway Drive Shamrock Drive project is located east of Uptown Charlotte and north of Independence Boulevard. The scope of this project is to reconstruct the existing Eastway Drive Shamrock Drive intersection and build 2 new quadrant roadways, which will result in adding 4 new signalized intersections for the Eastway Drive Shamrock Drive corridor. The existing intersection is a 5-leg skewed intersection that shows up on the city's high injury network. The intersection experiences congestion issues as well as safety issues for all users in the area. Jennifer, can you go to the next slide, please? As I mentioned in the introduction, we are proposing to reconstruct the existing Eastway Drive Shamrock Drive intersection and build 2 new quadrant roadways. The installation of the quadrant roadways, which are the 2-lane roads running perpendicular to Eastway Drive Shamrock Drive in the image you see, will allow us to remove the left turning movements from the main intersection. So if you're on Eastway Drive and want to turn left to go onto Shamrock Drive, you will utilize the quadrant roads, and when you get to the main intersection, you will make a through movement through the intersection. By having the quadrant road, it allows the main intersection to have through and right turning movements only. This type of improvement will help improve the capacity of the main intersection by removing the left turn signal phase and giving the added green time to the through movements. The left turn lane removal will also help reduce crashes that historical data has shown to occur at this intersection. Historical data identified various crash patterns, but the most common crash that was occurring was between the right turning vehicles on Shamrock Drive, with the cars making illegal lefts into Frontenac Avenue. If you're not familiar with this intersection, the left turn lanes that are marked on Eastway Drive are actually supposed to go to Shamrock Drive, not Frontenac Avenue. So what is happening is cars from Eastway Drive are turning left into Frontenac Avenue, creating a conflict with those right turning vehicles from Shamrock that are trying to turn right on Eastway Drive. The removal of the lefts will remove this conflict as well as allow vehicles to navigate safely through this intersection. The improvements at this intersection does not just accommodate vehicular traffic. We are also upgrading the intersection to better serve our pedestrian and bicycle traffic. The Eastway Drive Shamrock Drive will be converted to a protected intersection. This will allow pedestrians and cyclists to safely cross the skewed intersection by installing concrete islands, signage, and signalization to assist them in navigating through the intersection. Outside of the intersection, Eastway Drive and Shamrock Drive corridors will have upgraded pedestrian and bicycle facilities. These will include adding multi-use path onto Eastway Drive and have a buffered bike lane on Shamrock Drive. To close out my presentation, I would like to add how these improvements are not just important to users traveling through this area, but the surrounding community. Maintaining connectivity to known destinations in this area, such as businesses, parks, residents, place of worship, and schools, is key, and providing infrastructure for the community to safely access these destinations via whatever mode of transportation best fits them will result in a successful project. Thank you. This completes my presentation as well as all the presentations for the City of Charlotte.
Thank you, Aaron. So Huntersville?
Hey, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yep, sure can.
Fantastic. Afternoon. My name is Stephen Trott with the town of Huntersville. Wow, looks like there's a lot of great projects out there from other places. So I'll throw another one into the ring. So this is a great opportunity for a project, a much needed project that's multimodal in Huntersville. Project we're excited to present is the 115, NC 115, or Old Statesville Road project between NC 73 and McCord Road in the northern central part of Huntersville. Long-term vision for the corridor between Main Street, which is at the northern end of downtown, and NC 73, which is a major east-west corridor just south of Lake Norman, is generally depicted on the MTP map on the right. It's a multi-lane divided facility. ADT for the past several years, since 2016, is around 20,000 vehicles per day. So road's pretty much getting at its vehicular capacity point. Also today, there's disconnected sections of sidewalk and no separate accommodations for bicycles. The MTP assumes the section of road is to be widened by 2045. I'm going to guess when the next iteration of MTP comes out, it's likely that's going to be even further out. So without some funding help, corridor will likely remain in its current state for another 25 plus years. One advantage of this project is if we can break that project into smaller pieces, breaking that MTP project into 2 or 3 pieces, this being one of them, that can make this portion easier to deliver and also subsequent portions. So going on to the next slide. This slide shows the overall big picture concept of what the project could look like. We haven't gotten down to the detail of adding driveway locations or things like that. We figure that out when we get more into the design process. But another thing to note is on the typical section. On there, it calls for protected bike lanes, and that's part of the town's Greenway and Bikeway Master Plan that was recently completed. On the concept, it looks like the road's pretty straight, which is correct if you're only looking in 2 dimensions. When you add that third dimension, there's about a 20-foot drop, change in elevation in the middle part. Maybe hard to see, but there's a little blue line that comes through there, and that's around where that 20-foot change is. As we're finding out with most other projects in town, the current culvert under that low spot is a bit undersized. Not quite as bad as maybe other projects are, where, for instance, we look at another project where the current culvert on the road's about a quarter of the size or smaller than it really should be. Not quite that bad here, but definitely undersized. So that needs to be upgraded so that it reduces that risk of overtopping. Development pattern in town sound like other projects from other places. We've got a church, park, a school, affordable senior housing, and various other developments, businesses and things such as a pharmacy. So a lot of uses in this area. Bike and ped accommodations are not present but needed to connect everybody together. You really can't walk between anything out here without walking in the road itself. Part of the project, we propose to reduce the full movement driveways, can eliminate those by adding a median. That's going to improve safety along the corridor, hopefully reduce those severe crashes. And also as part of the project, we want to reduce the speed limit in the section. Currently it's posted 45 and we're looking to hopefully reduce that down to 35. We think that's going to better align with our proposed section and the vision for the town. Move on to the next slide. So, and this list of several things I've already mentioned, but the big part of this is the town has a solid funding commitment on this project of 30%. Well, that doesn't help us get the maximum points for it. It represents a pretty significant funding commitment from the town towards a single project. If the town tried to fund something of this size on its own, 100%, maybe over 6 years, we probably have to raise property taxes by at least 6% to do so. So this is a pretty significant project and one that really needs to be done, and we really could use the assistance doing it. Thank you again for the opportunity today to present, and would be happy to spend any remaining time to answer questions.
Thank you, Stephen. So, yep, I think your time is up. So thank you again.
Welcome.
Iredale?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michelle Hepler. I'm with Iredell County Parks and Recreation Department. I'm really excited and grateful for the opportunity to be in front of you folks today and share a little bit about our exciting project. So the Iredell-Mecklenburg Bike Ped Connector project, otherwise we'll be calling the Three Corners Trail, gets its significance. It's in the southeastern most quadrant of Iredell County, touching to northeast Mecklenburg and close proximity to West Cabarrus. It is a multi-jurisdictional project with significant regional support. Not only are our jurisdictions excited about the project and at the table to support it, but we also have additional support from Catawba and Davidson Lands Conservancies, as well as the Carolina Thread Trail. It definitely completes a gap between funded and existing greenways in the town of Mooresville and the town of Davidson. It would connect from the funded section of Dye Creek Greenway at Johnson Dairy Road all the way down to the Mecklenburg County line. And that is where it would meet Abersham Park and the existing greenway there. I will say that this project will check a ton of boxes with relationship to connectivity, to accessibility, economic impact, collaboration, and then of course, health and wellness. This will be Iredell County's first construction project request, and quite significantly, Iredell County's first greenway project. So we are super excited to have this on our slate and have the support from our county commissioners to move forward with it. It's approximately 2 miles of greenway, overland connector, and sharrows. Again, I mentioned that it is a significant regional segment of the Carolina Thread Trail. And most importantly, I think it actually is the only connection of greenway from Iredell to Mecklenburg counties. When we talk a little bit about the letters of support from Mooresville, Davidson, and Mecklenburg counties as it relates to the project, these jurisdictions are in such support that they have offered up and committed additional resources. The town of Mooresville has provided their town planner expertise and support, as well as their town engineer, and 5% of our required match. Also, Mecklenburg County has agreed to support the project with match as well. So I think that having those types of commitments from these multi-jurisdictions speaks to the significance of the regional impact. This particular segment will create an alternative transportation option for more than 5,000 residents in this general area. And it does connect quite a bit of destinations. It will connect, once completed, Mooresville to downtown Davidson, Davidson College, and there are 3 existing parks along this greenway path. So if you'll go to the next slide. One of the things that I will say also about this project is that we've been looking at and working on the project since May of 2020, and we're able to actually have some representation from Mecklenburg County commissioners and Iredell County commissioners do a site visit. You'll see this photo here is an actual corner marker that is on the property that speaks to the significance of the particular regional type project. The other photo, while it's a bit grainy, it shows a lady pushing a baby stroller on the street with oncoming traffic and going traffic. So there's certainly a need there as well. And I'll just close by saying the regional project is it's one that will enhance the overall health and well-being, safety, and certainly the connectivity of our communities. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Megan?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. So I really appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to you about our, and I see my video is not working, so let me troubleshoot that. Well, I'll keep moving even without my video. So I'm here to talk to you today about our grant application for GRADE, or grants to replace aging diesel engines. This is not a traditional transportation project, and so I want to spend some time today going over the project scope. Our submittal includes 2 different types of activities that are both eligible for CMAQ funding. One is engine repowers, and the other is idle reduction technology. So within the engine repower category, there are 3 locomotives that are affected, all of which operate in the Charlotte region. 2 locomotives are proposed to get new engines with modern emission controls, which will result in about a 62% reduction in ozone-forming air pollution and particulate matter. And then one of the locomotives will actually have the engine completely removed, and it will be used as an electric propulsion unit, and it will be used in conjunction with one of the other locomotives that's being repowered. You can see a picture on the left of what those combo units look like, with the main locomotive and then the electric propulsion unit on the end there. The other part of the project has to do with idle reduction, and you can see that pictured here on the bottom left. So the idle reduction, so just piece of information, background information, is that locomotives do not use antifreeze to cool their engines. They use only water. And so during cold temperatures, the engines must idle or run continuously to prevent the water from freezing and causing engine failure. So the proposed idle reduction stations that are part of this project would provide electricity that basically keeps that water warm and provides auxiliary power so that the engines can be turned off during the winter months and for other periods when they might have extended idling. And our proposal is to install 2 of those idle reduction units, one at the Charlotte rail yard off of North Tryon, and one at the rail yard in Pineville, where the locomotives that are being repowered operate from. And together, those 2 idle reduction units will reduce over 5,000 hours of idling per year. So moving to the next slide, this project is expected to eliminate at least 32 tons of ozone-forming nitrogen oxides each year. It can be a little bit hard to understand the scale of that emission reduction. And so I wanted to give you a comparison here with something you might be familiar with, which is cars. So the pollution eliminated by this project is equivalent to removing at least 7,400 cars from the road each year. So that's each year, and the project benefit will go on for at least 10 years. It's a pretty significant emission reduction. Next slide. I want to end by just talking about the fact that air quality is a really key objective to CMAQ funding. It's right there in the name, congestion mitigation and air quality funds. Our region currently only narrowly meets federal health-based air quality standards, and EPA is actually currently reconsidering those air quality standards. If the standards are lowered, our region may be designated a non-attainment area again for ozone, particulate matter, or both. This has implications for future transportation projects that are required to demonstrate conformity. These engine repower and idle reduction projects are cost-effective, proactive ways to reduce air pollution. Norfolk Southern has committed the matching funds for these projects, and the grant is expected to be, it will be structured as basically a fixed price grant, and so any overage would be the responsibility of Norfolk Southern. I started by saying this is not a traditional transportation project, and so in fact, it didn't even really fit in any of the application types. And so as Jennifer talked this morning about that some of the projects may not fit in with your traditional scoring criteria, this is likely one of those projects. And so I hope you will give it due consideration because it is a project that can produce significant air quality improvements locally. And so again, I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you about the project and happy to answer questions either online or offline.
Thank you, Megan. Let's see, Parks and Rec.
Hello.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Joyce Figueroa, and I am a park planner for Mecklenburg County. Mecklenburg County submitted one new bike ped project for Irwin Creek Greenway flow from Clanton Road to Leicester Street. This project would add approximately 1.4 miles of trails to the existing 1.7 miles of greenway and provide off-road connectivity to parks, schools, community centers, and to the surrounding community. Next slide, please. The existing Irwin Creek Greenway connects great amenities such as the West Boulevard Pocket Park, Revolution Park, the Revolution Sports and Learning Academy, Charles L. Sifford Golf Course, the Clanton Park, Barringer Academic Center, and the Arbor Glen Recreation Center. This Greenway project would extend this existing Greenway from Clanton Road to the M.A. James Park and Community Center at Leicester Street, and would also connect to the Reed Neighborhood Park and the Reed Park Academy. Next slide. This Greenway project is of great importance at a local and at a regional level. Regionally, this Greenway is part of the Seam Trail, formerly known as the Morrisville to Charlotte Trail. A current planning study has extended this regional trail system to approximately 50 miles of contiguous trails connecting from Statesville, North Carolina to the South Carolina state line. The seam is part of the Carolina Tread Trail, and once fully developed, it is projected to be the longest trail network in the area. At a local level, this transportation and recreational trail will provide a high degree of impact to a community with higher than the regional average concentration of African Americans, Latinos, poverty, limited English proficiency, and carless households. This Greenway project will provide direct access to high concentrations of carless households and populations at greater risk for chronic disease for social determinants such as 25% of its residents living below the poverty level and 22% of its residents with less than a high school diploma. We believe this Greenway project will be a great asset to its surrounding community and to the region as a whole. That was pretty fast, but that will conclude my presentation.
Thank you, Joyce. That was great.
All right, thank you.
So I have Mint Hill.
All right, yeah, we're here.
Great.
So I am Justin Williams, and Steve Fry is on here as well. He might chime in a little bit, but we will be presenting 3 sidewalk projects. And you can go ahead and advance to the next slide. Each of these will be pretty brief, just to keep things moving here. They're pretty straightforward. But this is Bartlett Road, Brief Road, and Fairview Road. And as you can see, there are 5 proposed segments totaling 1.83 miles, which begin along Bartlett Road. There's a kind of weird path that goes down through the Oxfordshire neighborhood. So the blue dotted lines are existing sidewalk. I'm sorry, can y'all see me, by the way?
Yes, you're good.
Okay, sorry, it wasn't showing up on mine. Blue existing is existing sidewalk, and the red is proposed. So you come down Bartlett Road there at the top, through Oxfordshire neighborhood, connect on Brief Road down here. Thank you, Jennifer, for following. And then the longer segment at the bottom is Fairview Road. And the focus of this project is to provide pedestrian access for residents to Veterans Memorial Park. And did my animation come through? You clicked one more. Yep. So that is Veterans Memorial Park. It is a regionally used park due to its location off 485, and residents in the neighborhood shown on the map currently do not have pedestrian access to the park. So you have Summerwood in the top, Oxfordshire, as I mentioned, and then Old Sycamore in the bottom right, the number 4. And those are 3 of our largest neighborhoods here. And again, the sidewalk will also connect those subdivisions to the existing network here in the town of Mint Hill. That would be the west side of the map that continues for miles outside the map. And lastly, I'll point out that the St. Luke Baptist Church, or Catholic Church, I'm sorry, is the orange diamond there, number 1. Would also be connected to the town's network by this sidewalk. And that's a relatively large church, which is in the process of also constructing athletic fields and many other amenities on their property. So I'll leave it open for Steve or anybody who has questions on this one. If not, we can move ahead.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so this is our Lawyers Road and Thompson Road sidewalk. This is, you can go ahead and move along. Okay, thank you. This is probably our most highly requested sidewalk in town by residents. So what we have is 4 segments of sidewalk, beginning on Lawyers Road, just south of Highway 51, and continuing down Lawyers Road until it eventually takes that right turn and continues down Thompson Road for a total length of 1.8 miles. The main focus of this project is to connect pedestrians to the Stevens Creek Nature Preserve, which is that big red marker down at the bottom. It's a regional venue where that just opened last year, actually. And it has miles of hiking trails as well as a nature center. And currently, as you can see by the existing and proposed sidewalk on the map, there's no pedestrian access. It's isolated. And there's growing demand for that here in town as residents want to access the hiking trails and everything. So, and right now, there is no way for pedestrians to even walk down Thompson Road with there being no defined space. There's really tight shoulders and slopes. So in addition to the nature preserve, thousands of residents would be connected to the town's existing sidewalk network again. This would take them all the way up Lawyers back to the downtown area where the red pin is shown at the top. And up there you have 2 grocery stores, Harris Teeter and Publix, the Mint Hill Library, and then Dane Elementary School, which is the green number 4 up there at the top, which is just down the road. So the main focus would be the nature preserve, but you're connecting thousands of residents to all these other amenities and the downtown district as well.
Thank you.
All right, lastly, we have our Lebanon Road and Margaret Wallace Road sidewalk. So this project would total just under 1 mile of new sidewalk beginning on Lebanon Road, where it will connect to existing sidewalk that was actually just completed by the town. So we're aiming to get Lebanon Road finished and get that connected to the network It also includes 2 segments along Margaret Wallace, where there's currently gaps in the sidewalk. That's where those red flags are. They're on the map. And in these 2 sections along Margaret Wallace, they've been traveled and used like sidewalks for years. And that's resulted in goat paths, which we've included pictures in our submittal, but not here. This stems largely from the fact that there's a very large apartment complex there, which is the Orange Diamond #1, that we see a high volume of foot traffic from, as those residents travel down to grocery stores in either direction from the apartment complex, and then also to Lebanon Road Elementary School, which is the green #5 there. So you see people walking their kids to school and things of that nature down this stretch where there's missing gaps of sidewalk. And we think it's very important to complete this sidewalk along Margaret Wallace and create a defined space for them to travel. And lastly, it would also connect to Matthews' existing sidewalk network down in the kind of bottom left corner where it says Matthews there. So give pedestrians access to travel all the way to downtown Matthews by foot, which we think is important. Just making that connection between Matthews and Mint Hill and completing the network there. That's all I have. Steve, if you want to add anything, or if there's any questions on any of those 3.
That was great. Thank you. Steve,
Thanks.
did you have any final comments? All right.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mooresville?
Thank you. If we go to our first slide, please. I'm really glad that I get to follow Megan Green, because she noted at the opening of her presentation that her project didn't fit into the box. And one of the things that I love most about being in this organization is that coming to meetings like this, or just seeing all these projects come through, you always get good ideas from others. And so several years ago, I saw the city of Charlotte apply for a sidewalk package. And that is what this project is. We're calling it our Mooresville Graded School District Sidewalk Package. And I just realized that that is the next one. This one is really part of that sidewalk package. So we have 5 sidewalk segments, but we're having 2 packages. So the first one is the South Elementary School to Mooresville Middle School. It's a bike ped connector. You see it in that a blue line on the screen. It connects Ashland Creek subdivision, which is to the right, to White Oaks Acres subdivision on the left. And importantly for us, and sort of the theme of this package, is that it allows safe passage for children and others from South Elementary School, which is on the top left of the screen, to Mooresville Middle School, which is on the right. And there's actually a cluster of 3 schools there. So this gives a lot of impact. Without this connection, it's a 1.5 mile journey. With this connection, it is less than 1 mile between the 2 schools. Next slide, please. In 2010, 2011, the town embarked on a Safe Routes to School action plan. That plan was adopted in 2012, and the #1 priority of the plan was this connection. And that's shown in that blue circle. There's like a red dashed line in the top left. The main part of this project crosses a town-owned property. We've owned it since 1993. It's 7 acres. And then it connects to 2 town streets. White Oaks has a public right-of-way of 80 feet, and Ashland has a right-of-way of 60 feet. Again, this connects schools and neighborhoods together. Next slide, please. The project is approximately 1,100 feet in length. Sort of the zigzag on the screen. We don't have this project designed, but we're aware that it's going to take some switchbacks to cross the creek. There's also some topo issues. You can see from this map that there is sidewalk all around, really. In Ashland Creek, you can see it's on both sides of the road. And in White Oaks, there's a small gap of sidewalk that this would fill in, along with the pedestrian connection. The bridge across the creek will be 10 to 12 feet in width. And because we already own this property, the streets are ours, the right of way is there, we thought that this made sense as a standalone project. Next slide, please. So going into our sidewalk package, which this is a letter from the Mooresville Graded School District in which they are supporting all 5 projects together. And they have been a partner with us with our 2012 Safe Routes to School plan and our recent 2020 Safe Routes to School walkability audits, which is where these segments that you'll see momentarily come from. So we appreciate their support. Next slide, please. So just starting at the very top of the screen, that blue line to the north, that would be a bridge connector between the subdivision of Foxmore and McNeely Road. And there's actually no sidewalks in that particular area, but these are very quiet streets. And perhaps most importantly is the school that it's connecting to, Parkview, pre-pandemic, received the most free and reduced lunches. So this is an area that needs improvements for its residents. And if we move down to sort of the middle of the screen, sort of half middle, I guess there's like a green blob. That green blob would be Liberty Park and the War Memorial. And we do lots of after school programs for children in the community. And although there's pretty good sidewalk infrastructure there, there is a gap. And when the bus drops the kids off for after school program, they are walking in the street. And so we want to remedy that with this sidewalk connection. Then moving down a little further, I'm showing the bridge connector that we talked about earlier, the South Elementary School to Mooresville Middle School connection, and a sidewalk segment that would actually connect the White Oaks apartments to Fieldstone. And that again is just very important. It's just the tiniest little gap, but it's significant and important for our community overall. And then the last one is a sidewalk from the neighborhood of Caudle Creek down there on the bottom right, and extends north up to the back of this 3 school campus. That particular one is Rocky River Elementary School. And so all these projects together, it's less than a mile, not counting the South Elementary School connector. These 4 presented here is 0.7 miles. So thank you so much for your time and consideration of our projects.
Thank you, Erica. Waxaw?
Good afternoon. This is Theo Gatea. I'm an engineer with the town of Waxhaw, and Waxhaw has submitted the Howie Mine Road Sidewalk project for the 2021 fall call for projects. The goal of the project is to create an improved sidewalk along the corridor with curb and gutter and safe crossings to connect residents to downtown and destinations. Destinations that residents will be connected to are schools, places of worship, a library, employment, and entertainment options. The current sidewalk and curb ramps are substandard and are not ADA accessible. Driveway cuts are also not accessible and they are non-existent in some places. The project will create a safe sidewalk and crossings for all users. Next slide, please. The project is in the northeast quadrant of downtown, with project limits extending from North Providence Street to Cureton Street along Howie Mine Road for a project length of 1/2 mile. The photo of the sidewalk shows a narrow, cracked sidewalk with utilities and drainage in the walking path. The road does not have a curb and gutter, putting pedestrians adjacent to traffic, as shown in the photo below. There is no buffer separating the vehicles and the pedestrians on that substandard sidewalk. The proposed project will increase safety and accessibility. This quadrant lacks a safe connection to downtown. Downtown Waxhaw is in the lower left portion of the map there at the intersection of NC 16 and NC 75. Next slide, please. The project has been identified in multiple town plans, including the Waxhaw pedestrian plan, which is currently undergoing an update through a NCDOT bike and pedestrian planning grant. The project also was prioritized in the master transportation plan, which was a CRTPO planning grant. It also was in the downtown neighborhood plan, and residents raised their voices about the need for the improvement to the substandard sidewalk. And it has been programmed and approved by our board as a part of the fiscal year 2022 to 2026 capital improvement plan. And the completion of this project will help Waxhaw achieve its goal of being a great place to live, work, and play. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Theo. That was good. Weddington?
Good afternoon. I'm Karen Dewey. I'm with the town of Weddington. We have a pretty straightforward project that we applied for funding for, a single lane roundabout to realign Forest Lawn Drive to improve skew and spacing with the northbound through lane on Potter Road. We've had several complaints from the residents along there because of the traffic and the accidents. I've lost my notes. The intersection is heavily skewed with limited sight distance and no turn lanes. And we're looking to help realign the intersection that's immediately south of the current stop sign to help with that. Next slide, please. We've had, it's a pretty straightforward, like I said, the county did a critical intersection analysis and got responses to a survey showing that this would be a better alternative rather than a stoplight. And I've also highlighted parcels of land in the right picture of property owners who have sent me letters about this particular intersection. The town council has supported it by including it in the capital improvement plan. The county has supported it by approving some funding to go towards it. And it's multi-jurisdictional, like I said, with the county, and Division 10 will help deliver the project. Next slide, please. There we go. Those are my notes. The prioritization went through an objective process with the county critical intersection project analysis, and has received several support from the residents and the council and the county, of course. I have lost my place. I appreciate the opportunity to present this. I obviously am new at figuring these things out, but I think it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, that was fine. And I think it is pretty straightforward. And so you did great. Thank you so much, Karen.
Thank you.
So again, let me see if I can get my camera on. So you can see when we were doing the pre-submittals, I kept thinking, oh, the POC needs to see all this. This is great. And honestly, by the time we got to Megan Green's grade application, I was like, okay, we definitely have to do this now because I couldn't explain Megan's project. But big round of applause. If we were all in person, I'm sure everybody would be clapping. That was great. these are great projects and there's a lot of passion behind them. Clearly there's need for funds, and again, I can't thank you enough. That was really great. So the next steps, again, we're back to the calendar. So none of the projects have been scored yet. Staff is working on that. We're doing reviews of just the application and the estimates. And then at the end of the month, probably in a couple weeks, all the scores will go to the Project Oversight Committee. And then Project Oversight Committee will meet twice in December and a third time if necessary. Information reports to the TCC, if we have any scoring updates, that will certainly be presented at the first Thursday of the month TCC meeting. And then information reports, so the short list should be completed by January. That information will go to the TCC and the board, and then a request for action for the TCC to recommend projects to the board, and then the board to award projects. After that, we would do, the TIP would be amended, and then the STIP would be amended, and then we will work on moving forward. So shortfall and planning projects typically would go soon, and we will look at engineering phase, right-of-way phase, and construction phase, and work those into the schedule. So the Project Oversight Committee actually has a lot of work to do coming up, so we are on it. For the applicants still online, and I will be sending out an email, we have a follow-up survey that I'd like to send out. Your name, there's no place to put your name. You do not need to sign into Google. You'll see down here, it's only to save, but it's only 10 questions. And the questions are more like, the pre-submittal meetings helped us. Was there anything that you feel like could be improved? Did you think the presentations were helpful? Did you have enough time? Things like that. And it's really short. I think there's 9 or 10 questions. And I really hope that you will give us some really good feedback so we can make changes, improvements, any tweaks that we need to do. We're really good with that. I'm really good at taking criticism. So the POC will meet next Monday at 2 p.m. And with that, I've spent a lot of time talking. Are there any questions from the POC members?
Jennifer, I haven't received the like the Zoom invite. I'm not sure if that had been sent out yet or not.
Okay, yep, I think so, but I will send it again.
Thank you.
I think you got yours independently. I'm not 100% sure. I'll make sure you get it. Thank you. You guys are all quiet. Andrew, do you want to wrap up?
Yeah, sure. Thanks again to all the presenters. That was interesting. POC is going to have a couple tough decisions as we do have more funding requested, the funding available. So I just, again, thank you. You all did a great job, and POC, get ready to discuss this stuff next Monday. And with that, I guess we'll close the meeting.
Thank you.